Israel is losing the information war, and we're going to be talking about information war, propaganda as it relates to conflict. We're going to be talking about the Eastern European situation as well, because I think a lot of people are getting this idea that if you can win the PR battle, that's basically everything. And what we're seeing going down in Israel is they're basically losing the PR war, but they're still going to win the ground war. Same thing with what's going on with Bear Country in Eastern Europe. They're losing the information war, but they're going to win the ground war. And this is so very important for us to understand, because all the propaganda, all the media, they think that they run the world, but they truly don't. So let's jump into it, folks. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, but we're kind of watching what's going on in the news here and trying to understand how big of an impact silencing people is and controlling the narrative. Now, this channel is important because it's one of many channels out here on the internets now and on the YouTubes and everything like that. You know, a lot of the people out there on the YouTube trying to get the truth out, trying to unspin the narrative that's being spun by the mainstream media, trying to speak truth even in the face of power. Well, the United States is now demanding Israel withdraw out of the Gaza area by December 31st, that their invasion, their operation needs to end by December 31st. Now, Israel is saying they'll be done by the end of January. The United States is threatening, the Biden administration is threatening to abandon Israel. Now, we just had a UN vote that the UN Secretary General, he used his emergency powers to call the Security Council to an emergency session and brought before them a call for all the members to vote for essentially forcing Israel to have a ceasefire. Now, here's the simple fact: the UN doesn't have a military. When they deploy peacekeepers and such like that, they basically have to have a truce in place. And the peacekeeping force, as we used to call them back in the day with Kosovo and such, the UN peacekeepers were called Smurfs because the blue hats, and basically they were about as toothless as Smurfs as well. They really couldn't do anything, kind of like a lot of the NATO forces in Afghanistan. Like the German forces, that every time someone starts shooting at them, they would retreat. They wouldn't return fire, they just retreat. So the United States soldiers did all the fighting, and the Germans and some of these other coalition partners sent troops, but they just hid in their bases. And so when it comes to these peacekeeping missions, basically you look at Rwanda. The UN was there in Rwanda while genocide was literally happening, and the Canadian troops, the troops that the UN deployed there, basically hid in their compound and watched everyone get murdered with machetes outside their gates. And so really when the UN is like, Israel, you need to stop, Israel's already said, well, what are you going to do about it? And the answer to that is they're going to pass a resolution. Ooh. I mean, the UN was against what Bear Country did to Eastern Europe, and where did that go? It didn't go anywhere. Do you see UN troops there supporting them against the Bear Country invasion? No, the UN passing resolutions and doing stuff. Is the UN sending weapons? No, the UN is not. The United States is sending lots and lots of weapons. European allies are sending a few weapons, and the UN doesn't have an army, doesn't have stockpiles of weapons, doesn't really have much money. All they can do is just beg. And so I want you to understand how the PR propaganda campaign is important, shifting policy and shifting and getting allies kind of on your side and shaping the narrative. But at the end of the day, Israel had their essentially 9/11 done to them. And they're not going to let this go. And short of somebody like the United States who actually has the capability of sending troops to stop them, which no one's going to do that. What's going to happen here? Everyone's going to get upset with Israel? Like, that's the worst case scenario. Israel is going to continue doing what it's going to do, and if the United States stops blocking the resolutions, we were the sole vote against the UN Security Council. The UK abstained. Everyone else voted for demanding an immediate ceasefire. But no one's going to commit troops to enforcing that. And even the countries that might commit troops, like Pakistan and the regular UN people who send their troops basically to get some experience, and they get the United States to pay for Pakistani troops in like Haiti or in Kosovo or wherever else they're going to be deployed. They get the United States to fund it, and then they get, send their troops abroad and get them some combat experience or something like combat experience for free, basically. And the country might even make some money off of it. So they're not going to send their troops to attack one of the most best armed and most disciplined militaries in the world. That would be insane. They're not going to do that. That's just silly. So what are we really talking about here? We still don't see any foreign troops in Eastern Europe defending against Bear Country's invasion. There's been a lot of people squawking about it. Lots of materials and weapons and shells and stuff like that have crossed the border, but ain't no troops, or at least no open troops, right? Volunteers, some retired soldiers, that kind of thing, but no real military is committing to it, because that would be crazy. That's insane. And the same thing is happening in Israel. So while the narrative is very important, it's like the narrative that's going on in a lot of Democrat-run cities, right? These blue cities that are so corrupt, and I'm talking about left-wing, lefty, crazy, let's have socialism now and have open borders and pay people to come into our country and not punish criminals, that kind of crazy kookism, right? There's sane, rational Democrats out there, but I'm talking about these nutcases, right? These nutcases say that, the people stabbing people in the cities aren't the problem. The people talking about how people are being stabbed are the problem. And that's why they go after people like me and, these other channels on YouTube. And Alex Jones apparently just got back on Twitter. I know a lot of you guys are super skeptical about Elon Musk, and I'm not saying he's a great guy. I'm not saying he's one of us or anything like that, but he's definitely been doing a lot more free speech stuff than what we've seen with a lot of these other platforms. So that's why I'm kind of optimistic there. He's not doing it in order to make money. He's clearly losing money trying to be pro-free speech. So that kind of points to the fact that he's at least believing it, and he wants free speech. So I know some of you are like, we'll see. And yeah, we will see. We will see. We'll judge people by their actions and not by their lip service or what they're saying they're going to do. We'll see what they actually do. And so far, I've been pleasantly surprised at how he's been managing Twitter. So, all right. So we got the United States military has been attacked 82 times since October 17th. In Syria, in Iraq, Iranian proxies are launching missiles, drones. They're attacking U.S. military bases, the U.S. embassy in Iraq. They keep attacking us. And I think it's just super telling that the Biden administration isn't putting pressure on Iran. They're continuing to try to free up more money and give Iran more money while they're shooting at our soldiers. Meanwhile, Israel, that's coming in and bombing the guys shooting rockets at us, we're putting pressure on them. I think that just tells you so much about what you need to know. And let's just throw this out to you guys. Why are U.S. troops, for those of you who are American citizens or whatever, why are American troops in Iraq? Why are American troops in Syria? Can you answer that? Honestly, truthfully. Now, I know a bunch of you guys are kind of news junkies and you might be able to answer that, but go out on the street, ask random people. People that get their news from TikTok and from CNN, right? Ask them, why do we have troops in Iraq? Why do we have troops in Syria? They're being shot at, they're being attacked, but why are they even there? It's a question. Now, you might get some canned answers, which are not really accurate. You know, they're there to prevent genocide. Well then, why are they protecting oil refineries? Why are they protecting oil pipelines? Why are they protecting oil wells? Why are American contractors there pumping oil out of the ground? And if Americans are there pumping oil out of the ground and U.S. troops are protecting them, why is the United States government not getting the proceeds of that money? Where is that money going? And if you're like, I'm sure there are billionaires who are pocketing all of that money that we are earning by putting U.S. troops at risk. If you're that cynical, you're probably right. You're probably right. And it's due to ask more questions about that thing. When you're young and idealistic and you get, you know, you're going to pay for your college or whatever like that, and you sign up to go serve your country, and then you get sent to someplace like Syria where you are protecting an oil well. I don't know how fast I would get cynical if I was in that situation. I was young, youthful, and idealistic. I almost signed up several times with the military before I went over and did humanitarian work in Afghanistan and that area. And the things I saw there didn't really jive with what I had heard about the United States. I watched the convoys of opium going down the road, and I said, if I know what's in those trucks, and everybody in the region knows what's in those trucks, surely the U.S. military, the CIA, and all those guys must know what's in those trucks. The government of this country knows what's in those trucks, and yet everyone's just kind of letting them go through. Like, we're not talking about like, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of trucks on this road, and some of them are carrying opium. No, it's like there's no trucks on this road most of the time of the year, and then it's opium harvesting season, and suddenly there are lines of trucks. Not like some of them are carrying it, all of them are carrying it. That's the only reason why the trucks are there. The trucks come there during harvesting season, and they pick up all the opium, and it's like, it's right there. You know, I know our government knows about that, but our government chose to not do anything about it. Even though the money from and proceeds from our opium selling went to pay corrupt government officials in Afghanistan, went to funding the Taliban, went to funding ISIS. The weapons that were being used to shoot at U.S. soldiers were being funded by that opium. You look at that and you just go, this is kind of screwed up. And then you look around the world and you're like, this isn't a one-off. It happens again and again and again and again. Billions and billions of dollars disappear, go through illicit trades, human trafficking, drug smuggling, oil theft, and all this kind of stuff like that. And it's organized. If you want to tell me that the NSA can tell me everything that you've been doing, every single place you've ever been with your cell phone, and they're watching every single click that you click on the internet, and they don't know about the hundreds of trucks full of opium, even though they know people on the ground that they could just ask. The cell phone traffic, the Russian mafia, everyone knew. Everyone knows about how the smugglers are getting stuff into the United States. Everybody knows about the human trafficking. No one's doing anything about it. Everyone from the government that does anything about these things, they get taken off to the side and get given a stern lecture about they need to stay in their lane. Tell me it's not so, but it absolutely is so. You want to ask questions about where all that oil revenue is going from Syria? If you're a government official, you're going to stay in your lane. Stop asking questions. This is how the world revolves. All this stuff happens behind the scenes, and everybody knows it's happening. Everyone who's been overseas and has been involved in any of these things or anywhere near any of these things knows exactly what's happening. And that's how it's all working. So, of course, Israel defending themselves against the unprecedented attack against them on October 7th, they're going to do what they're going to do. And no one's going to stop them. And there can be its PR campaign out there. The Gaza Hamas terrorists can wage this PR campaign, but they're going to lose because Israel troops aren't opposed by anyone of substance. The fact that all the Hamas operatives fled south with the civilians and hid amidst the civilian population in order to avoid the fight in northern Gaza, well, Israel said, fine, we'll move down into southern Gaza. We'll go after you guys. If you're gonna hide down there, we'll just come right back down after you. So that's what they're doing. They're going and invading down into southern Gaza. And you say, well, that's really bad for the civilians. It is. It is. But Israel's done playing. You know, Hamas wants to play stupid games, and the people in Gaza are paying the price. And the truth is that the Hamas terrorists have extreme, they have the backing of the Gaza people. And it's an awful situation. I mean, no one's going to look at that and say, that's a good situation. No one in Israel is going to be like, well, civilians dying is a good thing. No one's saying that. No one. Every single attempt, you see Israel trying to reduce civilian casualties, and you see them actively making a way for civilians to get out of the combat zone. And oftentimes, the Hamas terrorists are leaving with them. And it's frustrating and it's difficult, but yet they're continuing to uphold the highest standards of trying to be proportionate in their attack. But I mean, at the end of the day, proportionate conflict and violence is just, it doesn't really exist. The United States doesn't respond with proportionate responses when we get attacked. We just don't. We either don't do anything, it seems like, or we go way overboard. And when the United States population gets worked up, it's not proportionate. If you do proportionate, you're endangering your soldiers. You're endangering lives. You do overly proportionate. And you move to make sure that this never, ever happens again. And Israel said it. Very simple. Release all the hostages, and all of the Hamas terrorists must surrender. And Israel would stop. But as long as Hamas is holding terrorists, holding hostages, and they're not surrendering, what's there really to talk about? Everyone can, sideline coach and backseat drive, but this isn't you having to deal with these situations. And in the end, it's not up to you. It's not up to you. The people who are in the situation, people who are dealing with it, are going to deal with it in their way. And so everyone can talk about, well, what the UN's going to do. They're going to pass a resolution, and no one's going to care. They're not going to actually do anything. There's no teeth to it. All right, friends. Hopefully that's been a little bit insightful of just kind of what the situation is like around the world. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.